Hello, everybody, and welcome to our podcast, Welcome to Livingston, where we invite local businesses, people, and organizations in to talk about what they are giving to our community. My name is Don Paquette.
And I'm Angela Paquette, and we're with the Paquette Group Real Estate Professionals. As realtors and brokerage owners, we bring valuable insight into the local market and community every week.
Thanks for listening, and welcome to Livingston. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of our podcast, Welcome to Livingston. My name is Don Paquette.
And I'm Angela Paquette, and we're with the Paquette Group Real Estate Professionals.
Yes, and we are super excited about today's episode. But before we get started, just want to take a minute to introduce our sponsor to you. Today's episode of the Welcome to Livingston podcast is brought to you by our valued sponsor, Jim Paquette, with Lake Michigan Credit Union. He's a trusted mortgage lender who has lived and worked in our community for many years. Jim Paquette is dedicated to helping our neighbors achieve their homeownership dreams and is proud to support the local businesses that make our area special. And, you know, he's just a great guy, local, has an office right down there on Main Street in downtown Brighton. And you can see him out in the community. He's very involved.
Yes, he does an outstanding job, and we feel very comfortable directing our clients his way.
Wonderful. Yep. We've been doing it for many, many years.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about today's episode.
Yeah, today's really fun because we've been doing this a while now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. One of my favorite episodes of all time happened pretty early, and we thought this might be a great opportunity to revisit it.
Yeah, so way back in the backway machine. What?
Bibbly beep, bibbly beep.
So an episode that we did when we were just starting off the podcast and we barely had our feet wet, and we were talking about pets and about moving with pets because it's something that impacts so many people, and you really don't think about how to go about that and the impact that has on you and on your pet.
Absolutely. It's a very big deal that I don't understand why there isn't more of a conversation about it.
Right.
That pets are such a big part of our lives. And then as you work on moving, whether you're selling your house or buying a new one, how that pet fits in is an important part of the equation.
100%. Well, a big thing about it is remember, they have their own thoughts. They have their own feelings. They kind of feel off of you.
Yeah,
So when they sense your anxiety when you're moving and the tension and everything. And if you're not kind of leading them along, they don't know what's going on. So we have a dog, right? So if we're going out of town, our dog knows we're going out of town.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Because the suitcases come out.
Exactly.
And that's a clue.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can actually see in the demeanor, right? That tension, that unknown,
anxiety,
the poutiness, right?
Yes. Yes. But I've heard this from, people that have cats as well, but certainly dogs, particularly because they're so social. They definitely start showing signs of anxiety and just, being stressed out, right? Mopey. So
where did you want to start out today in terms of talking about moving with pets?
There's a couple different layers to things, right? Because I definitely want to touch on how to make the process better for pets. But I think it's important just to highlight when it comes to buying and selling, and particularly selling, the steps that you need to make sure that you're taking as a seller in terms of having pets, right? Like something as simple as if people are coming out to your home for showings, it's critically important to make sure that the dog poo gets picked up outside because people will walk in the yard, right? And I guess for those buyers, right, be forewarned that in some cases, people don't take that extra step that they should. And it's important if you're walking in the yard to watch your step.
100%. Even further from that, if you know you're going to be listing your house in a couple months, start being a little bit more judicious about picking up the poo and such, because when you go to a house that has dogs and they haven't really been taking care of picking up the poo and such, you can see the green spots in the yard and the yellow spots in the yard. And you can mitigate that so that you're taking care of that yard a little bit better for a few months so you don't see the effects of the dog in the backyard. Right. Something as easy as dogs have their favorite place to dig, right? Maybe figure that a little bit, put down some seed, smooth that out, but definitely picking up the poo.
Right. And for cat people, that becomes an important thing too, that pet smells are such a huge factor. And in some cases, some buyers are allergic to cats and they'll end up not even considering a home if they suspect that a cat has been there. So in terms of removing some of the cat structures and even in terms of just animal smells, working on your house so it's not a matter of like, okay, now that I'm going to list my house, maybe let's start a deep clean now.
I was about to bring that up and you're bringing that up. So getting your carpet cleaned.
Yes, this is a big hot button.
Right. Getting your carpet cleaned. If you have pets in the house, dogs, cats, for the first 3 or 4 days after the pet cleaning, it is going to bring that pet smell out like tenfold.
Yes.
Right?
It's remarkable. So it becomes kind of an amateur hour thing, right? Because we tell our sellers of, hey, it's a great idea to do this, but make sure you're doing it a good week in advance before any people are coming through the house. We have seen disastrous situations where someone came by and they got their carpets cleaned the day before showing started, and it was awful.
Right, because it pulls all of those smells out and everything, and they're in the air, and it only lasts for a few days, right?
Right, and so this wasn't one of our clients, of course.
Right.
Because we make sure that our clients are prepared.
Right.
But that's something to be aware of.
It's something to be aware of, to do ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to do duct cleaning in your house, interesting thing, where the smells linger in your house for pet smells. Remember, a lot of it has to do with the dander. So the dander gets into the air, it gets into the vents and such. So if you're really looking to get rid of a pet smell or the evidence of a pet, it's, cleaning the carpets, it's cleaning out the vents, and then a huge chunk of the smells is in your furniture while your furniture is leaving the house to go to the new house, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you really were looking to get rid of it, you have to do some upholstery cleaning as well, because those things linger. Not to say that they're bad smells, but they're just pet smells. And if you're a person that is a pet owner, you understand that. But if you've never owned a pet, you may not like the smells. And
smells in general are something in terms of houses being sold that people don't always think about, but they become this immediate turnoff.
Right, because you're nose blind.
Yeah.
Right, and Glade fresheners work, but you don't want 10 Glade fresheners in your house, which I think we've talked about on some other episodes.
Yes, it's true.
But, in general, because we're going to be talking about all the things with pets, but if you have pets and you're listing your house, odds are you're going to want to remove evidence of the pets for the showings. You want to take the pets with you if possible for the showings. There's some cats that don't like to leave the house and you'll never see them while you're there.
Right. And that's as a seller. Like,
as a seller.
As you're leaving for the showings, make sure that your pet is either with you or with a friend or family member, that not only do you want to not be in the house when your home is shown, you want your pet to not be there if possible.
If possible, right. That being said, we show houses with more so cats than dogs, because people do have a fear of pets sometimes, and you don't want to put the buyers in a position where they're walking through the front door and it's something that they're afraid of. That being said, people work with it.
Right, exactly. And, in those cases where if a cat is left, we let the realtor know. A lot of times cats will just kind of hide anyway, but by letting the buyer's agent's realtor know that there is a cat, please make sure not to let the cat out. Cat will be in back bedroom or whatever the instructions are.
Right.
There's ways to manage that because this is definitely, in getting back to the pets themselves, for some of these pets, there's strange people coming into the house, strange smells. They don't know what's going on. Their person is stressed out and maybe starting to pack boxes.
Right.
There's a lot going on.
Well, and sometimes you don't realize how your pet's going to react to all the newness and the new people and such, because usually the people coming to your house are people that they're familiar with the pets, right?
Right.
So like
family, friends.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But if your dog goes crazy every time UPS shows up, they're going to go crazy when someone walks through the front door that's never been there before. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, sometimes people will put a dog in a crate out in the garage or in the basement.
Right. Put a blanket over or some such. Some of them are very quiet. You never know they're there. So there's some very good pets. One of the things I did want to mention that we'd mentioned a little bit last time, but I really wanted to key in on since we're talking about listing the house real quick, is electric fences. So the last time we did this, we didn't have an electric fence, and now that we do.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a whole different world. One of the things I would point out to buyers out there, if you're buying a house with an electric fence, ask the people what the boundaries of the electric fence are. So is your animal only going to be able to be in the backyard, only going to be able to be in the front yard, kind of where the boundaries are on, so you know that. Now you can call the company and they'll come out and they'll put flags in for you. But if you get those boundaries, you kind of know where they are. You can call up the company that has the electric fence to retrain your dog on that new fence. Because just because they were trained on a previous fence, they know where the boundaries are. Mm-hmm. After a while, a dog knows where the boundaries are. We've let our dog out and forgot to put the collar on it, and they don't leave because they know where the boundaries are.
Yeah.
So you want to keep that in mind. And for the sellers out there, understand that those collars are part of what's going with the house to the new person.
Right.
Right? They're part of the electric fence and everything. And we always make sure to add that on the contract for those things. But understand that that's a fixture.
Yeah. And it's a selling feature, to be honest with you, because they're expensive to install. And even in the case where maybe the line is broken, it's not working anymore, the color's long been lost, when you call the fence company to come out, even though there's the cost involved, it's actually far more affordable once it's already been trenched and it's in there.
Oh, yeah. No, the control box in your garage or your basement where it is, that's the expensive part.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have that, the rest of it, the collars are pretty expensive too, but
right.
You can get it all worked in and it's a wonderful thing.
But that's a great point, because that's something in terms of dog owners that comes up often on sales of homes.
Yes.
So even in terms of evidence of past pets chewing on door frames, and I mean, pets can cause a lot of damage.
They can. You want to try to mitigate that, take care of what you can, clean those things up and such, There's some people that we've had to talk to them about getting their floor refinished if there's a lot of scratch marks and such on it. But, it's one of those things where if we're sitting down with a seller, it's part of the process of when we're walking through the house, saying, hey, maybe you want to take care of this, maybe you want to take care of that. But in terms of pets, there are two things I wanted to mention. One, feral cats or barn cats.
Yeah.
And I know you wanted to talk about that. And two, like if you have cows or chickens or horses.
Which in Livingston County, there are a number of people that have those.
Pigs.
Yeah, we see a whole variety.
Right. So what is the what happens if you have barn cats? They're not your cats. They're kind of your cats. You don't take care of them. They're out there. Maybe they're taking care of making sure there's no mice in the barn, but now you're selling the house.
Yeah. That's something that it is what it is. It's part of the environment. It's interesting because sometimes the buyers are all on board, and that's something that they are fine with. It's not a big deal or so forth. But in rarest of occasions, there becomes issues with that. We did have one situation that was a little bit dicey, that basically it was effectively a bounty put on the head of this one barn cat, because the sellers were able to get rid of, the feral cats around, except there's one they weren't able to get. And the buyers absolutely did not want that. And so it was a matter of
making sure to catch the cat before time ran out, basically, right?
Right. And there were dollars that were held to ensure that the cat was indeed removed. So,
exactly.
So that was kind of a touchy situation. That's out of the norm.
Right.
Unusual. But each transaction is so different. Each person's situation is so different. And then when you're marrying up a seller and a buyer, that's why it's so important in general to have great agents to make sure everything goes smoothly, because people have different personalities.
100%. And usually you're talking about those things, when you're talking about a house and you're listing a house, you're having conversations with the owners about the pets they have, obviously, you're bringing the pets with you, but there's things that come up that maybe you hadn't realized that, you have a koi pond in the backyard and you're moving to a house that has a koi pond. You may want to bring those fish with you.
Right.
You're caring for them. They cost a lot of money and such, but the people coming to buy the home may be like, but I was buying it because there's a koi pond.
Yeah.
You're taking away one of the so understand that there's a discussion that has to be had. But the main focus we kind of wanted to talk about is how do you prep your dog or your cat for a big move to a new environment, because you're taking them from the environment they know. And it's not like you're going to be able to have a conversation with your pets the same way you are with your kids to say, hey, you're moving to this new house.
Right.
How do you prepare them for that?
It really makes it tricky, but I would say engaging with that pet probably a little more than normal, making sure not to leave them alone if you can help it for, as much as possible, to just be available, be reassuring, play with the dog, have fun. Maybe some dogs are older, right? And so there's certainly some, there's some elements to things. But I would say even for old dogs, it's amazing, or even old cats, it's amazing how a new environment really stimulates them, sparks things, and we've seen where pets last longer than people think they would by moving to this new environment.
Right. Some of the things that we did to help, we had an older dog the last time we moved, right? Mm-hmm. So we had a beagle. Our beagle was about 13 years old when we moved. We made sure to go to the new neighborhood and take some walks in the new neighborhood prior to moving there.
Right.
To kind of introduce the dog to the new environment. Take the dog in the car and such. When we were moving things over with the different loads, we took Casey with us to be able to say, hey, we're not leaving you. Your stuff isn't leaving with you. Make sure to pick out a few key toys that they really like to comfort them.
Yeah, or a little blanket or something that's familiar to them, right?
Right.
That as long as you're around as much as you can be, and as long as some of those items that are familiar to them are right there, then it makes the transition easier.
Exactly. In the new space, when they get to the new space, obviously you're allowed to let them roam the house without a leash or anything to engage in the new space. I would advocate for the first few times you have them outside at the new house, have them on a leash the first few times, walk them around so they can get a better understanding of the space and you can get a better understanding of the space. Maybe there's a gap in the fence that you hadn't realized, that you put them out there without a leash and they bolt right through the gap. But if you had them on a leash walking around, you identify that there's a gap, that there's a place that was dug under. Those sorts of things become important. If there's a new dog door that they're using, you're using treats and such or a cat door. You're using treats to engage them with that. One of the things, if you have an older pet, if you're moving from a house that has carpet to hardwood, or you're moving from a 1-story to a 2-story that now you have stairs, or the stairs was carpeted and now it's wood, there's chances for your pet to injure itself not knowing the space.
Right.
So if you're able to introduce them to those spaces like they're a toddler,
right,
then you can take care of some of that to not cause, eliminate problems before they exist.
Right. And to make sure to just take that time to spend that time with the pet in the new space in terms of a transition, which obviously you're going to be very busy. There's a lot of boxes. There's a lot going on. But just take that extra time. And that reassurance goes a far way. And It's, like you said, with the hole in the fence, an ounce of prevention is totally worth a pound of cure, because the last thing you need, where you just have arrived, you have all of your boxes, you don't know where anything's at, and all of a sudden the dog is gone. Because, just the amount of stress on moving day anyway. But in terms of to have other issues of a pet injuring themselves or running away, makes it that much more difficult.
Right. Because, dogs don't, and cats and whatever other pets you have, they don't understand when you're packing up boxes that you're going to be bringing them with you.
Right.
Right. They feel that it's the same as like a vacation.
Right.
Where like you're just gone. Right.
Leaving them behind.
So just because it's easy to pack up all the dog or cat toys, leave those towards the end.
Yes.
Right. And then if at all possible, bring your pet with you when you're doing that initial move over there. and
there's
unpack some of their stuff first.
Right. Exactly. There's nothing worse than the house has been cleared out and the pet is left there and nobody's there and they just don't know what's going on.
Right. I'll come back and get you, but
yeah, they don't know. So
Right.
so just to be cognizant is really half of the battle.
Right. And if you're using like a doggy daycare or something and they're familiar with that doggy daycare, on the day of that big move, it might be a good idea to send them to the doggy daycare because that's an area they're comfortable with and they're enjoying. And one, they're not going to be underfoot when you're moving stuff all over the place. You're going to have people there that don't know to not open a door or do this or that. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it reduces that chance of anxiety.
Right. Exactly. All those little things. Another little tip when it comes to the litter box. Generally speaking, when we speak to our sellers, we say, you know what? If possible, if we can remove the litter box during showings, there was a tip that I came across recently that had way back when we did this the first time, to have just a little scrap of carpet underneath because it makes moving it a little bit easier in terms of messes and so forth. But a lot of times our sellers will just move that down into the basement or out into the garage. And then, of course, come back in after showings are done.
Right.
But that definitely helps with making sure that it's not as obvious that a pet is there.
Exactly. And one thing before I forget. So I know we talked about like yellowing in your yard and everything. So if you've had a dog for a while, you know that sometimes they pick out their favorite spot in the yard, right?
Yes.
And that's the area that either looks really green or really yellow.
Yeah. It's a little extra over there.
It's a little extra, right? So when you get into the new house, be knowledgeable of that. So if there's a spot that you don't want them to pick, now you have the ability to make sure to like, no, this is where I want you to do it, right?
Right.
Don't allow them to pick their own spot that's right out to the left of the front door. You're like, really? Right there?
Yeah, exactly. Use this as an opportunity, as a reset. And by the way, kids can get involved this way too. That as a parent, if you have kids,
Right.
You have a lot going on, but by putting the kid in charge of the pet and helping them help each other can really be a helpful tip too.
I know we're going to talk a little bit more about it, but I wanted to take a pause here to see, are there any fun pet stories that you kind of wanted to get out there? I know we had one on the last episode that I want to talk about again, but it's just so interesting, the things that we've come into contact over the years with pets and houses.
Absolutely. It really does get awfully interesting. So I think the parrot still takes the cake. The parrot's still my favorite story.
Yeah, no, the parrot story is one of the best stories we have. So there was a listing that the listing agent called us up before we went out there with our clients to warn us about the parrot. We all know that parrots can mimic speech, right?
Yeah.
So this parrot mimics speech, but really loved swear words.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Spoke like a sailor.
Horrible, dirty mouth. So the parrot was going to be locked up in a room in the house. So we didn't get to see the parrot, but we could hear the parrot. So we get to this house and we're looking through the house, and the parrot became so distracting because our clients were just on the other side of the locked door to the bedroom talking to the parrot, and the parrot would
swear
right back at the person. And it was so funny.
It was pretty strange.
But if I had that listing, I would have been like, could we remove the parrot from the house during the listings? Because this is going to be so distracting.
Maybe we won't be able to, but it'd be fascinating to look back at how much in terms of dollars that cost people, because that did deter. It was a lot harder for our buyers to see the house through the experience of the
100%.
parrot that distracted.
But, I would say a few other things to make sure. If you have snakes, please don't be feeding the snakes when you know that there's going to be listing appointments. Like that is not the day. Showings, yeah. Showings. That is not the day to put the mouse in the tank. Like I don't want to see the big huge lump of a mouse.
Because buyers do glance at when there's animals in tanks. That's something that
100%. If you have a fish tank, good time to get the tank cleaned prior to the showing.
Right. And to be careful, because sometimes fish tanks, if they've there for a while, there could be water damage that you didn't even realize.
Yes. Yeah. So if you have a huge, we have seen this where you have a huge fish tank and then the fish tank goes to move when you're leaving and all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, there was water damage underneath it or there's water damage behind it, because those things are extremely heavy.
Right.
And they're hard to move. Mm-hmm. Right. So, I mean, with any of those things, it's just important to kind of look at the steps beforehand, right?
Right. Any other wild animal stories?
I don't know. I mean, we've had some good stories. We had the story with some old horses that were at a house where the horses and what happened to the horses were really important to the homeowner that was leaving the house. So we were actually able to negotiate to connect the buyers and the sellers to allow the horses to stay there, and then the previous owner to teach the new family how to care for the horses, because she was so concerned that if you send the horses to a shelter for older horses and such, that they were too old to be able to move.
Right.
Right. So, it's one of those things that, like, if you have extenuating circumstances with your pets, please have a conversation with your agent, because we understand how impactful this can be to animals. And we understand how emotional it is, not only for the seller or for the buyer that's moving in to bring their animals in, right? But for the animals themselves. That we've seen a lot of things in terms of how do you comfort an older animal that's going to be moving? How do you, if you've been in a house and you had some animals pass away and you buried them in the backyard, or you planted a tree for the animal and now you want to bring that memorial with you, we can walk you through that process of how to do that in the correct way so it doesn't impact anybody and you're able to get either bring that with you or get the closure that you need. Right.
Because that does come up.
It does. We don't realize those things as it goes. We had a seller that was she loved her cats.
Yeah.
She had a memorial in the house for where the pet had, for after being passed away and such. So we're cognizant of those things because they are a member of the family.
Absolutely. And I just feel like so often people get caught up on, I'm a seller and what can I do to sell my house, or I'm a buyer, and they don't necessarily always think of, buyers do a little bit better, because sometimes where a buyer is picking is based on their animal itself, right?
Right.
But in terms of making a point to realize that pets are an important part of the process.
Right. No, 100%. And you point that out for our buyers. So often they have questions on, are we allowed to have fences in here? Can I put a dog run in? Is this a large enough space for my pet? All of those things are really impactful because it is important to people, right? And I was I was looking at the notes here, and you had in the notes, which was really important, to watch your pet when you're packing. And if your pet starts to pout, it's time to spend a little bit extra time with your pet.
Right.
You don't want to ignore them.
Yes, exactly. That just take a time out, right? Almost like you would with a, 2-year-old or something that didn't understand. Just stop what you're doing and just reassure them, because they are an important part of your life, and they don't know what's going on. And just recognize that fact and pick up some extra treats or whatever it takes to just make sure that they feel the love that you have for them.
100%. And, PSA, you're supposed to be getting a license for your dog. So when you're in a new community, you can go into the county and you can get a new license. Make sure that you're, if you're going to be doing a new dog park, or you're going to be doing a new groomer, a new daycare for your dog or your cat or such, you're going to have to get all those vaccine records, and you're going to have to turn those things in and everything. It's nice to have a file of those things before you move, because you're not going to know where that stuff is.
Right.
So then you're like, oh my gosh, I wanted to go to this new dog park. I was so excited. It was right in the neighborhood. It was right around the corner. And I have no idea where that file is. And I was so excited about it, and I can't do it till I find it.
Exactly. So thinking ahead, I think, is really half of the situation. But once that new pet comes into the new surroundings, even as they're older, that's the thing to keep in mind, is that just the new stimulation is interesting, right? If you've lived in one house and you never get to leave, then to have a new place to go is very exciting for that animal.
New smells.
Right.
So, and that's what you talked about earlier. It can be a rejuvenation, right? Yes. It's a new burst of energy, but take time to spend time with that animal to understand what the animal might be going through and to see what that is. So like in our case, our personal experience, it was like taking 3-4 years off.
Right. Yeah, it was astounding that it really extended her quality of life.
Right.
By all means. Public service announcement, particularly in condos and some communities in terms of HOA and so forth. Sometimes there's limits to the number of pets you can have, or the size and or breed or kind of pet. Most homes don't necessarily have that, but your realtor should be able to confirm something like that for you. We've had people in terms of wanting to get in a particular condo, but having a larger dog.
Right. Or there may be a leash requirement. We have some dogs that are so well trained they don't need a leash, but then you go into a community that has a leash rule.
Right.
So you want to look at the HOA docs and make sure of that. You're in a condo. There may be a designated space for your animal to do its business.
Right.
Know where that is.
There may be a limitation for number of cats.
Exactly.
Right? And that's the thing. You just don't want to run afoul of any of these rules. I crack myself up. I'm good at those dad jokes.
Right.
But yeah.
No, knowing that information ahead of time, having your realtor look that information up, get the bylaws. If you have something that's a question, have them reach out and ask about the question. When we're looking at outdoor animals, there's some communities that you are not allowed to have chickens in.
Right.
You have chickens. You want to be able to bring them to your new house. You bought 2.5 acres. You're like, hey, I have room for chickens. And then you find out that there's an ordinance against chickens, right?
Right.
There may be a limit on number of horses, where you bought a house with a horse barn and the horse barn has 6 stalls, right? You're like, hey, I can have 6 horses. But then you don't have the acreage that's required to have that many horses. Right. So it's doing your homework and finding out what those things are beforehand.
Absolutely. And a knowledgeable agent is a great place to start.
Right.
Because they should know some of those items, or at least know where to get those answers for you.
Right. They should know what questions to ask for you.
No.
Right. Because those things are important to people. Right. Especially since now we're seeing such a rise in people wanting their own chickens at home.
Yes, that's a hot thing now. I don't know if anybody realizes that. People want chickens. And even, I have seen in terms of somebody having it in a contract once to include the chickens in the sale of the home.
Yes.
So crazy things happen. Watch out for those coyotes, right?
Yes. Watch out if you have more than one rooster, because they can get nasty with each other too, which we've seen before. But yeah, no, you want to watch out for that. You want to know what you're getting into, be able to take care of those things, and be able to live the life you want to live in wherever you're moving to.
Right. In the space that you have.
In the space that you have, and just utilize it for all that it's worth. But take care of your pets. Love on your pets. Understand that moving with pets is a thing, and they don't understand what's going on if you don't tell them. Right? If you don't involve them in the process and kind of ease them through and everything, you can reduce a lot of anxiety for them that you don't even know you're creating.
Right.
Right. And it's just those little things of taking the time to reassure them that not only is everything okay, because when all this new stuff starts happening, all that is for them is anxiety, that they don't know what's going on. And it's not like you can really tell them, but you can show them that you still care for them, and then you can ease them through the process so they're comfortable going into the new house.
Right. Reassuring that pet as often as you can is absolutely the right move.
Right. And again, just a great PSA for those electric fences. Don't assume if your dog was on an electric fence, they're going to understand the new electric fence. It's easy to make that phone call. It's not a lot of money to have them come out and do one training session. Or if you know how to train them on the electric fence, take the time to do that little bit of training. Put the flags out there for where the boundaries are. Put them on the leash. Walk them around on the boundaries so they understand that new fence. Because there's nothing worse than your dog getting zapped once or twice or accidentally going out of the field of it and not being able to get back in because you didn't take the time to learn that new boundary with them.
Right. It's a process.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just even moving in general is a process, but understanding that for pets, just have fun with it and give them the love.
Yeah, no, they'll get with it and they'll come out the other side beautifully.
Better than ever. They're very resilient.
Very resilient. And that goes for all your different pets. You know, if you have a gerbil and such, it's all of those things. Just a little bit of attention goes a long way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Good. Well, I'm glad we had a chance to retouch on this topic today. This is one of my favorites because people just don't talk about it enough. And I'd love to see more conversations about it.
Yep. So yeah, please check out our other episodes. Again, we've mentioned it a couple times. Back at the beginning, we did an episode on pets, so please check out that episode as well.
Episode 8.
Yes, and this is going to be what episode?
Well, when they do the production, they'll do it. But it's certainly been a number of years now at this point. But
100%.
But fun to just sit down and talk through it again.
Yep. So we have a lot of great episodes out there on different aspects of the real estate industry, but then we have a ton of episodes out there highlighting all the amazing businesses in Livingston County that make us wonderful. And we just love having them on, talking about what they're doing in the community. And it's just a pet project of ours, right?
But yes, businesses, causes, and events are really such an important part of our county, and we're proud to be part of it.
100%. Well, thank you guys so much for listening today, and
welcome to Livingston.